And it's good because in an earlier episode of MLS History Retold, we talked about that ever memorable log cutting tradition in Portland. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's a tradition that stood the test of time all the way back to their MLS era. And that time had finally come because in April of 2011, it was finally time for the Portland Timbers to kick off their MLS stint at home at the newly named JELD WEN Field. Now, Connor, I could get all into the mesmerizing details of the history of JELD WEN Field, which I know you would love. We could talk about how it used to be home to various projects, including a Chinese vegetable garden in the early 1900s, or how it got into the hands of the city of Portland because the people who originally owned it wanted to make it a domed stadium, but the voters said, no way, Jose. So instead of trying to figure it out, they just sold it to the city. But I'm not going to make you sit through all of that.
Yeah, I mean, a Chinese vegetable garden is sick. I'm
That
kind of
is,
disappointed. We should honestly run it back. We'll move the stadium somewhere else. Keep the Chinese vegetable garden.
I was really like it was just a blip. One of those like Wikipedia blips, like, oh yeah, it just used to be this, but no links, nothing. I'm like, give me something, man. That's crazy. We could sit through all that and spend hours talking about the history of the land, but instead let's head into the moment that really matters. It's the first ever game, right? In 2011, the Portland Timbers, they were a vibe. And one of the first teams that I actually remember in early MLS days from the West Coast. I remember when I was a kid first getting into MLS, I was always flipping between who my Western Conference team was, right? When you're a little young kid and you're like, oh, well, I like two teams. I like this Eastern Conference team and the Western Conference team. And my two teams were either Seattle or Portland, which, as I know now, probably not the best way to do it, but I digress.
Wow, that is some crazy stuff. I mean, you're also a bit of a front runner too. You're just like, oh, look, exciting new thing. Let me be a fan.
Yeah. How did you get into MLS again? Remind me.
Anyway, you were saying?
The roster was great. It had guys like Kenny Cooper and Rodney Wallace, 23-year-old Diego Chara from year one. He's still going. But 23-year-old Diego Chara, 19-year-old Darlington Nagbe, a little bit of Eric Alexander, Jack Jewsbury, Sal Zizzo, Footy Danso, Stephen Keel, Troy Perkins, and my boy Jake Gleason. Those who know about my boy Jake Gleason. These are just some of the names that pop out on the screen, as well as current MLS on Apple TV commentator Ian Joy. Crazy enough. You don't know the Jake Gleason vibe, do you?
I only know Jacob Gleesnes.
Yeah, so you don't know. And
That's close enough, right?
this is my point. You don't
Tomato,
know. But
tomato.
those who know. Okay?
And those who
Um,
don't, don't.
and you do not.
I
These
do
guys
not.
came together. These guys came together ready to take it to MLS from USL, but they were forced to start their season on the road for the first 3 weeks because JELD-WEN Field was undergoing renovation, which we've seen multiple teams do already. But in the first 3 weeks, they dropped points to Colorado and Toronto before picking up their first draw of the season in a 1-1 battle against the New England Revolution. In these games, they were outscored 6-2, and while the level of travel is tough for anyone, things were about to change because on their return home, they were desperate for 3 points, and they would deliver. So let me tell you a little bit about how they prepared for their home opener because as MLS Soccer's preview of the match described it, the city was destined to provide an atmosphere evoking memories of more than 3 decades of soccer in Rose City. Head coach John Spencer acknowledged that, saying that it would be a special day, but that they couldn't get caught up in it. He said, you got to go out and you got to get your head in the game and you got to play well. And it was not just the coach and the players who knew this, but the fans did as well. After years of turmoil in the lower league, multiple hiatuses, and tons of games played in multiple different leagues, many fans were in awe that opening and kickoff in MLS was finally here. On top of that, the Timbers field staff prepared the pitch immaculately. Dennis Bishop, a season ticket holder from the USL days, said that the place looked gorgeous. It was a true soccer pitch, no holes in the grass, no pitcher's mound in the middle of the pitch, which for whatever reason in 2026 we still have to deal with. Not really, but you know what I mean. This was a level of beauty that had become a constant at Portland Timbers matches. Even to this day, it's still one of the most immaculate pitches out there. Players and media alike emphasized this, as any post talking about this game could not help but mention how beautiful the place was, a staple of positive infrastructure investment in MLS at the time. We know that in 2011, that was a big push. It wasn't just about getting teams in, but also getting soccer specific or soccer loving areas to invest in really good places. And that's what JELD WEN FIELD was. Even Footy Danso couldn't help but mention it, stating to the media that if you had never been here before and you saw it, you would think it's a brand new stadium, which we know it wasn't because they had renovated it from all these different places before. The power of the fans singing the national anthem in full voice, combined with the benefits of playing without travel for the first time, fans were expecting a positive result. In their pre-match predictions, fans were taking in a pre-match drink at the Bitter End pub. They all predicted that it was going to be a big win at home. Most suggested that they also would be in the top half of the table in 2011. So lots of hope going into their first season. And they also snuck in the fact that they were going to beat up on their Pacific Northwest friends in Seattle as well.
You don't got to put quotes on there. We know that they're not friends.
Well, listen, that was all the lead up to it, and that was big. But on the day of the game, it was here, and John Spector had to pick his team. And it was Jake Gleason, 19 years old, who got the nod in goal as Troy Perkins was still recovering from a knee injury. Footy Danso led a back three in front of him, with Jack Jewsbury anchoring the midfield, providing stability so that Kenny Cooper could do his thing up top. The team's only designated player this year, Diego Chara, did not make an appearance, which seems something of a foreign concept right now in 2026 when, first off, Diego Chara missing a game, period, is crazy, but playing a game without a designated player, also crazy.
I can't believe Diego Chara was a designated player.
Yeah, for like 3 or 4 years. They played against Chicago Fire, which we know. And on the other hand, they rolled out a team with a bit more firepower. This was back in the day when Sean Johnson stood tall between the sticks. As guys like,
Jeez.
yeah, Sean John, Atlanta legend Sean Johnson, by the way.
Yes, period. Yes.
Period. Oh God, you're canceled. Um, They also had guys like Jalil Anibaba and Gonzalo Cigares, who featured in the defense. Stalwart Logan Paws was ever present in the midfield, and their attack was star-studded with guys like Marco Papa, Patrick Nyarko, Diego Chavez, and Gaston Puerari. As opening night rolled around, the rain dumped it in Portland. I mean, to the point where you saw water skipping off the turf as the ball ran across it, and players who hit the ground created a splash as if they were jumping into a pool. In today's MLS, this sort of weather would have sent fans running or even abandoning the game altogether, but not tonight. After all the preparation and all the hype, all the expectation, the fans packed the stands and they sang the national anthem in full voice together as one, leading up to Ricardo Salazar blowing the opening whistle and getting the game underway for the first time in the MLS era at JELD WEN FIELD.
Timeout. Did you give a shout out to the ref right there?
Absolutely. King Ricardo Salazar. Listen, if I was here, I probably would have considered him for referee of the year if we were doing our podcast back then, but we
Of course you
weren't.
would.
So,
Of course you would. And you'd be wrong,
um,
like usual.
in rewatching this game, they have the full game up on MLS YouTube because it was one of those COVID history games that they posted like once a week to keep us entertained. The only thing that I could focus on was if you look at the center line, it's not straight. It's like somebody didn't put a line down and they just kind of hand wiggled it. It is the only negative of the field, but also 2011 MLS coded, right? Outside of that small detail, you could tell that the moment was matched by the players, right? From the opening whistle, it was high energy, nonstop action. This led to a cagey affair in the first half, up until the half-hour mark when Jorge Perlaza would blow the roof off the place. After some slipping and sliding in the midfield, Portland recovered a loose ball right in the middle of the pitch. A direct pass from Khalif Al Hassan gets in behind the Chicago back line onto the foot of Jorge Perlaza. Running in behind, he dribbles into the box, cuts it back on a fake shot. Sean Johnson loses his footing, and Perlaza slots it home to give Portland the lead at home. A great start for Portland was almost met with a terrible omen, however. Some of you may remember, as we mentioned before, when a Timbers player scores a goal at home, they get a piece of the victory log. So as expected, the camera pans over to my friend and yours, Timber Joey, expecting the Fanatics to start. But the rain falling as it was prevented the chainsaw from actually starting up. He sat there, kept revving it and revving it and revving it, and he couldn't get it to go. But the soccer gods and the timber gods were sending good vibes today because eventually that chainsaw started up and he cut the very first piece of the victory log in the MLS era.
It's a shame they were gonna have to bring out the old-fashioned manual axe if the chainsaw wasn't gonna start working. Just
Oh,
get
the
all the
two
subs
person
that are on the
saw,
bench.
the
Yeah,
two
yeah, yeah.
person
Just get.
saw.
I was thinking like the one you throw over your shoulder. Is just get all the guys that are sitting on the bench. Each one takes a whack at one at a time. That's your warm
That's
up.
that's one way to do it. From this point, the floodgates were open for scoring. No pun intended, of course. Just 8 minutes later, maybe the best goal of the night is scored after a horror challenge from Corey Gibbs, which only saw him earn a yellow. Which in today's game, yeah, he's gone. Portland had a free kick with which acted essentially as a corner kick. Jack Jewsbury served it in before the first ball was dealt with by the Chicago defender. The clearance fell right to Rodney Wallace, 25 yards out, who hit a screaming volley with confidence off his left boot that's found its way via deflection through a crowd of players and into the back of the net. The bench went crazy, the players were elated, and the momentum fell in their favor. It would stay this way until the second half, except for a really strange moment that I swear you would only see on youth soccer fields. Right before the end of the half, a throw in was awarded to Chicago. It took some time to get him the ball, though, because a man in a button up shirt who was on the Timbers bench started to play games with Cigaris, faking giving him the ball back, then giving him, shouting at him, wagging a finger at him, doing this whole thing. Roberto Salazar stops the match and threw him out of the game. Not with a red card, but with one of those, we're not going to start play until you get away. Bye bye. See ya. And just stood there. And you actually hear him. I guess it was close enough to a boom mic to hear it, where he turned around and he goes, out. I want him out. We're not playing until he goes. The
Not my
man
ref
was,
of the year.
any guesses who this might be, by the way? Just randomly out there. Obviously not names because you don't know ball, but any people like in the game?
Uh, a button-up shirt. You're talking about him, the button-up shirt guy?
Yep, yeah, yeah. Who got thrown out?
Diego Chara.
The man was later identified as former Portland GM Gavin Wilkinson. Why was he on the field? Why was he getting into Cigaris? These are the MLS history mysteries that the world may never know the
Ooh,
answer to.
he
Yeah,
rhymes too. The
history
history
mysteries,
mystery.
baby. That maybe we have a new title, spin-off series.
No, no. I knew you were gonna go spin-off series. You gotta no.
It was a great first half of football for Portland in their MLS era coming home. Although the vibes were flying high, they knew that Chicago was not going to lie down and take this easily. So they had to go out and build on the most dangerous lead in soccer, 2-0. And just 2 minutes into the second half, that's exactly what they did. Set pieces were the Timbers' best friend in this one. After another foul at the edge of the attacking third, Jewsbury stepped over the ball again and put it down on the ground. He played it out wide to Rodney Wallace, who whips in an innocuous ball from the left-hand side. It goes towards Sean Johnson, and there's nobody around him. But the conditions were not in his favor. Remember, it's pouring rain, it's super wet. He made a nightmare of it, fumbling the ball right onto the foot of Jorge Perlaza, the first goal scorer, who now has a brace on the day after tapping it into the empty net. 3-0 to the good. Timber Joe was getting a workout, and all was right in Portland world. However, there was still a good amount of game to go, and Chicago were finding their footing in the second half. They were creating chances and challenging Gleason's goal with corners, direct balls, the works. Things would start to get a bit dicey in the 65th minute in one of the weirdest moments you will see from this game. Chicago had possession in the middle of the park and tries to play the ball back to the feet of their midfielder, but they miss it. They miss the pass and it rolls into the box, into the back line. Portland defender Eric Brummer, trying to recover, slides in to try and clear the ball, only to scuff it and send it flying over the onrushing Jake Gleason into the goal. Absolutely absurd to concede, but that one gets the Fire back in the game, and nonetheless. The Fire sprint to get the ball back to the line and keep the momentum going because they knew with 25 minutes left, anything can happen. And if this was, and oh, I mean, if the chainsaw wasn't a bad omen, this random own goal had to not be a great one, right?
Yeah, fair enough. But you got the chainsaw working, so then you can't say it's a bad omen. It just took a little bit. Give it some
Ah,
time.
well, fast forward 15 minutes later, and the anything that can happen did in fact happen. The ball finds its way to the right side of the field outside Portland's 18-yard box. Dominic Odoro turns and plays the ball right to the foot of an unmarked Marco Papa 15 yards from goal. Probably not the best idea to leave him open in that space. He turns, gets it onto his culture left foot, and curls it up and over a fully stretched Jake Gleason to cut the lead to 1 with 10 minutes remaining. A brilliant finish that deflates the crowd in Portland, and they would be on the edge of their seats for the next 10 minutes wondering, were they really about to throw away a 3-goal lead? Of course not, Connor. That wouldn't be a good story to tell, and it wouldn't even take long to calm those nerves. An attacking corner is played into the box. It's headed back across towards a dueling Kenny Cooper and Sean Johnson. Sean Johnson goes up to try and claim it, drops it on the goal line under the challenge. A mad scramble ensues trying to force a ball over the line. Eventually, it gets put over. Footy Danso peels off claiming it, but it officially goes down as a second own goal. An own goal, if I remember correctly, this is the first time in MLS history up to this point, 2 own goals in the same half, one for each team. Very interesting. It goes against Portland's Deshaun Robinson, or I'm sorry, Chicago's Deshaun Robinson. Now, in the days of VAR, this is likely overturned for a host of different reasons, including a suspect handball on the jumping Kenny Cooper, probably a foul on the goalkeeper going up to be challenged, a whole bunch of things. But in 2011, without VAR, the goal stood and it sealed the deal for the Portland Timbers to get their first ever win in MLS and kick off the MLS era at JELD WEN FIELD on the correct foot. Now, fans knew what this meant in the grand scheme of the history of the club, and no weather conditions would have kept them away from this match. It was a brilliant atmosphere for a brilliant result, and the fans who were there on that day were leaving with memories that they will keep forever.